I opened my wife's closet 6 months after she died. Her dresses were still hanging exactly where she left them. Her shoes lined up on the floor. Her perfume bottles on the dresser, half empty, like she'd be back any minute to finish them. This is the story of how I went from a man buried under 8,000 things to someone who owns maybe 800. What I kept, what I threw away, and why letting go of 90% of what I owned gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever: my life. If you're over 60 and your house is full of things you don't use, don't need, and can't remember buying, you need to hear this. Because what I learned wasn't just about decluttering a house. It was about decluttering a life. Subscribe if you want the truth about getting older that nobody talks about. And leave a comment if this hits home. I read every single one. Let me take you back. Margaret and I bought this house when I was 32. 3 bedrooms, full basement, 2-car garage, attic with pull-down stairs. We walked through it the first time and she said, "Ernest, we'll never fill all this space." I laughed. That's the point. Room to grow. 40 years later, every inch was full. It didn't happen overnight. Nobody wakes up one morning buried in clutter. It's gradual, innocent. One birthday gift you don't really want, but feel guilty throwing away. One box from your parents' house after they passed that you're not ready to sort through. One set of tools you bought for a project you never started. 1 turns to 10. 10 turns to 100. 100 turns to a lifetime. We had clothes in that house I hadn't worn since the 80s. Not vintage, not retro, just old. Styles that wouldn't come back even if fashion became desperate. But I kept them because they still fit. Technically, if I held my breath. We had kitchen appliances we'd never used. A bread maker, an ice cream maker, a juicer that was supposed to change our lives. All still in boxes, all stored in the basement, all waiting for the day we'd finally become the people who made homemade bread and ice cream and fresh squeezed juice. We had books. God, the books. Margaret loved books. Mysteries mostly. She'd buy 3 or 4 every month, read them in a week, stack them on the shelf. I might reread them someday, she'd say. She never did. Nobody rereads mysteries. But the books stayed. 2 full bookcases, maybe 600 books. She'd read them all once, would never read them again, but couldn't let them go. We had boxes in the attic I hadn't opened in 20 years. Christmas decorations from when the kids were little, baby clothes, old report cards, art projects, a ceramic handprint from 1985 with Happy Mother's Day painted on it in crooked letters. Important things, precious things, things that proved we'd been a family, that we'd mattered, that our lives had weight, except they were in boxes, in an attic, that nobody went into. So what were we really keeping them for? After Margaret died, the house felt different. Bigger somehow, but not in a good way, in an empty way. Every room full of things, but none of them her. I'd walk past her chair and it would still be there, the little dent in the cushion from where she always sat. Her reading glasses on the side table, her coffee mug in the kitchen sink because I couldn't bring myself to wash it. The house was full, but it felt hollow. 6 months went by, then a year, then 2. I was living in a museum. Every object a memorial to a life that was over. I wasn't moving forward. I was maintaining, dusting, organizing, rearranging, spending 20 hours a week taking care of things I didn't need and didn't use. One morning I woke up and I was 73 years old, and I realized I'd spent 2 years of my remaining life being the curator of my own past. I started small. Had to. You can't undo 40 years in a weekend. I started with the junk drawer in the kitchen. You know the one. Everybody has one, full of batteries that might be dead, pens that might work, rubber bands, twist ties, instruction manuals for appliances you threw away in 2008. I emptied that drawer onto the kitchen table, looked at every single item, asked myself one question: have I used this in the last year? If the answer was no, it went in the trash. That drawer took me 45 minutes. When I was done, It was half empty. I could see the bottom. I could find things. And something happened that I didn't expect. I felt lighter. Not physically, mentally, like I'd been carrying a backpack full of rocks, and I'd just taken one out. Just one. But I could feel the difference. So I did another drawer, then another, then a closet, then the garage. A garage was brutal. 40 years of might need this someday. Paint cans from rooms we'd repainted a decade ago. Dried solid. Useless. But I'd kept them because throwing away half-full paint felt wasteful. So instead, I stored garbage for 10 years. Tools I bought for projects I never finished. A table saw, a router, a belt sander. All expensive, all barely used. I'd convinced myself I was going to build furniture, build a deck, build something. I built nothing. And now they were just taking up space. Monuments to projects I'd never start, and a version of myself that didn't exist. I called my son, asked if he wanted any of it. He said, "Dad, I live in an apartment. I don't have room for a table saw." I called my other son, same answer. My daughter, same answer. So I sold them, put an ad online, sold the whole lot for $300 to a guy who actually would use them. I lost money. I'd spent probably $2,000 on those tools over the years. Got back $300. But you know what? I gained back half my garage, and that was worth more than $1,700 to me. Then came the hard part. Margaret's things. I'd been avoiding it for 2 years, but I couldn't anymore. If I was really going to do this, I had to face that closet. I opened the door. Her dresses, her shoes, her sweaters folded on the shelf. Everything exactly where she'd left it, like a time capsule. I sat on the bed, looked at all of it, and I asked myself the same question I'd been asking about everything else. What am I keeping this for? The kids didn't want it. I'd already asked. Too painful. Plus, Margaret was 5'3". Our daughter's 5'8". Nothing would fit. Was I keeping it for me, to look at? I hadn't looked at it in 2 years. I'd kept the door closed. So what was the point? I wasn't keeping Margaret alive by keeping her clothes. Margaret was gone. The clothes were just fabric, cotton and wool and polyester. They weren't her. I called a women's shelter. They came the next day, took everything, dresses, shoes, coats, purses, all of it. Going to women who needed them, women starting over. Women who'd lost everything and were trying to build new lives. Margaret would have loved that. After they left, I opened that closet again. It was empty, completely empty. And I thought I'd feel sad. I thought I'd regret it. I didn't. I felt like I could breathe again. That closet had been a wound I kept reopening every time I walked past it. Now it was closed, healed. I could move on. I kept going. The kids' old rooms, full of things they'd left behind when they moved out 20, 30 years ago. Trophies, yearbooks, posters, stuffed animals. I called each of them. "Do you want any of this?" All 3 said the same thing. "No, Dad, we don't have room. Do whatever you want with it." So I did. I kept 1 box per kid. Their favorite toy, some photos, a few special things. The rest went to Goodwill. Boxes and boxes of childhood, gone. And you know what happened? Nothing. They didn't notice. They didn't care. They had their own lives, their own kids, their own houses full of their own stuff. We keep our children's childhoods in boxes, thinking we're preserving something sacred. But we're not. We're just storing things nobody wants while pretending it's love. The books were next. 600 Mysteries, Margaret's collection. I kept 10, her absolute favorites, the ones she'd talked about, the ones she'd recommended to friends. The rest went to the library. They had a donation bin. I filled it 3 times. I kept thinking I should feel guilty. These were Margaret's books, her treasures, but they weren't treasures. They were paper. The stories weren't in the books. They were in her memory, in the conversations we'd had about them, in the nights she'd stayed up late reading, because she couldn't put one down. Those memories didn't need 590 books taking up space in my house. 6 months. That's how long it took. 6 months of sorting, deciding, letting go. When I was done, I'd gotten rid of 90% of everything I owned. Clothes I hadn't worn in 10 years, gone. Kitchen gadgets still in boxes, gone. Furniture nobody sat on, gone. Decorations we only put out once a year for 3 hours, gone. Tools I'd never use, gone. Books I'd never read, gone. Everything that was taking up space without adding value, gone. And here's what I didn't expect. My house didn't feel empty. It felt bigger, clearer, calmer. I could walk through every room without anxiety, without thinking about what needed to be organized or cleaned or fixed. Everything left was something I actually used, actually needed, actually wanted. I could find things, the remote, my keys, my glasses, because they weren't buried under layers of other stuff. Cleaning took 30 minutes instead of 3 hours, because there were fewer surfaces, fewer things to move and dust and put back. But the biggest change wasn't physical, it was mental. All that stuff had been weight I didn't realize I was carrying. Every object in your house requires mental energy. Where does it go? Do I still need it? Should I fix it? Should I throw it away? Thousands of tiny decisions, thousands of tiny burdens. When the stuff left, the burden left with it. My mind felt clearer than it had in years. I could think. I could focus. I wasn't constantly overwhelmed by visual noise. I had time again. Real time. I used to spend 20 hours a week maintaining stuff, moving it, organizing it, cleaning around it. Now, maybe 2 hours a week. That's 18 extra hours every week. What did I do with that time? I started reading again. Real reading. Not just flipping through the paper. I finished 12 books that first year. Hadn't read 12 books in the previous 10 years combined. I started cooking. Actually cooking, not heating up frozen dinners. I'd look up recipes online, go to the store for ingredients, spend an afternoon making something from scratch. I hadn't done that since Margaret was alive. I started going to the senior center, Tuesday morning coffee group, Thursday afternoon cards. I'd never had time before, too busy maintaining the house. Now I had friends, real friends, people I saw every week. My grandkids started visiting more. You know why? Because before, when they came over, I was stressed. Don't touch that. Be careful. That's fragile. The house was full of things more important than people. Now, they can run around, make noise, be kids. There's nothing to break, nothing valuable, nothing more important than them. My daughter said something last time she visited. She said, "Dad, this house feels lighter, like you can actually live here now." She was right. I was living in a storage unit for 40 years. Now I'm living in a home. Let me tell you what I kept, because that's important too. I kept Margaret's wedding ring, not in a drawer, on a chain around my neck, close to my heart, where it should be. I kept one photo album, our favorite pictures, the ones that actually mattered. Not every photo from every vacation, just the best ones. I kept my grandfather's watch, the one my father gave me, the one I'll give to my son. That's not clutter, that's legacy. I kept the furniture we actually use, the comfortable chair, the dining table where we eat, the bed I sleep in. I kept the kitchen tools I actually cook with, one good knife, one good pan, one set of dishes. I kept my favorite books, the ones I'll actually reread, maybe 50 total. I kept enough clothes to fill one closet, not 3, 1. Everything else, didn't need it, didn't miss it. Can't even remember most of what I got rid of. Here's what I learned. You think you're keeping things because they're valuable, because they're useful, because you might need them someday. But really, you're keeping them because letting go feels like losing, like admitting you were wrong to buy them. Like accepting that that version of yourself who was going to use that bread maker and build that deck doesn't exist anymore. Letting go isn't losing, it's honesty. It's accepting who you actually are instead of clinging to who you thought you'd be. I'm not the guy who builds furniture. I never was. The table saw didn't change that. It just took up space while I pretended. I'm not the guy who makes homemade bread. The bread maker didn't make me domestic. It just sat in a box making me feel guilty. I'm Ernest. I'm 76. I like to read. I like to cook simple meals. I like to play cards with friends on Thursday afternoons. I like when my grandkids visit, and I don't have to worry about them breaking anything. That's who I am. And everything in my house now reflects that. Nothing more, nothing less. If you're over 60 and your house is full of things you don't use, I want you to try something. Pick one drawer, just one. Empty it. Look at every single item. Ask yourself, have I used this in the last year? If the answer is no, throw it away, or donate it, or sell it, but get it out of your house. Then do another drawer, then a closet, then a room. You don't have to do it all at once. I didn't. It took me 6 months. But start today, because here's the truth nobody tells you. Your kids don't want your stuff. They have their own stuff. And when you're gone, they're going to throw most of it away anyway, while they're grieving and overwhelmed and don't have time to sort through 40 years of accumulation. You can do it now, while you're alive, while you can decide what matters and what doesn't, while you can control where things go. Or you can leave it for them, and they'll hate every minute of it. I chose to do it myself, and it set me free. I'm not maintaining a museum anymore. I'm living in a home, a simple, clean, peaceful home where I can breathe, where I can think, where I can live whatever time I have left without being buried under the weight of everything I used to think I needed. Margaret's closet is empty now. Sometimes I open it just to look at the space, the possibility, the freedom. I could fill it again, buy new things, accumulate, start over, but I won't, because I finally understand something it took me 73 years to learn. The less you own, the more you have. Not things, life, time, clarity, peace. That's what decluttering gave me. Not an empty house, a full life. I'm 76 years old. I own maybe 800 things, and I've never been happier. If this resonated with you, leave a comment. Tell me, what's the one thing you're holding on to that you know you should let go? And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it, because the truth about stuff is something we all need to learn eventually. The sooner, the better. Take care, and remember, you don't need to keep everything to prove your life mattered. Your life matters because of what you do, not what you own.